Basically, I wanted to respond to a video, which I will show you here. Well, I'm not going to react to this video. I have already seen this video. Okay. So the video is this one. Parsing in FXV is a disease by Misshapen chair. And it was reacted to on stream by Asmon. And I watched both of these videos. I watched Asmon's reaction and I have seen the original video as well. And there's just some things that I want to respond to in it because I think there are some good points made in it, but there's some stuff in this that I do not agree with at all. But mostly I just wanted to respond to the video and points that were made in it, and especially things that Asmon said in his response. Because here's the thing about Asmongold. He has a perspective from World of Warcraft, right? And he said on his stream while he was watching this that he used to grief his team in WoW to get a good parse by saying, oh, we can wipe all night because I only get this one chance per week to parse, so we can just keep wiping until we get a run where I'm gonna have a good parse. And look, I know how that is. Like, I have definitely been in that situation before where like my weekly runs of a raid was the only chance I had to get a good parse that week, and it sucked when like things went wrong and I couldn't get a good parse that day. Okay, it sucked, but I never once intentionally like ruined the run because I knew we were having a run that we would clear but not get good parse. I was never gonna grief my team for that. Though, yeah, obviously there were times when we would wipe for other reasons, and I'd be like, okay, not that sad about it. It's okay. But the reason I brought that up right at the beginning is because it's not really as much of an end of the world scenario in Final Fantasy XIV compared to WoW. Okay, because in Final Fantasy XIV, usually people will join log groups. First, they'll usually get their BIS gear, get their good gear, and then they'll join parse runs, they'll join log runs, where everyone agrees we are gonna focus on everybody getting a good parse. Okay, that's different than your weekly reclears, than your prog with your static, where you're really just trying to work together to kill the damn thing, right? And if you can get a good parse, that's great, but it's usually not the purpose of that. Like, we have log groups are very popular for this reason. And so I just think that I want to say right out the gate that I think Asmon has a little bit of a warped perspective from WoW, not being as familiar with how prevalent log groups are. Okay. Now, in this video, one of the points made that was actually a good point. It was somewhere in the beginning. Like I said, I'm not going to watch it because I've seen it. I'm just referencing things that was said. One thing that he did say that was right is that a lot of people do tie their self-worth to the FF log rank. And that's just so messed up and wrong. It's awful because obviously it's just a number on a website and it's extremely unhealthy for you to tie your self-worth to that. It's even more unhealthy for you to call other people trash because of that. Like, it's really the same messed up logic there. Judging, yeah. You're so much, I can't believe this has to be said, but you're a human being and you are a lot more than your FF logs. I've made videos about this in the past. I made so many videos talking about this, but that was one good point. I'm glad that Misshapen Chair did make that point in this video near the beginning. But the video kind of goes on to say that parsing is a disease because people can do dumb shit and grief the team by greeting. Like, they can do stuff that's extremely risky, and they can ruin everybody's day by trying, like, focusing so much on the number. But you really can't parse well and do that. Like, the way it's sort of framed like a black or white. Like, it felt very binary for me watching it, because it was like, either you are greeting and you're griefing the team, or you don't care about numbers at all and you play super, super safe. But there's a whole continuum between those two things. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do with varying levels of risk to optimize your damage in a fight that's not going to wipe the group, right? Like, you as a player, you need to use discretion in what you can actually get away with doing that is not going to actually cause a party wipe. I mean, I think that it's not, what I'm trying to say is, it's not one or the other. And most people have been in a group where somebody died to greed, and usually you just laugh it off and you're like, oh, well, he's trying hard. And then they learn how to not die like that, because if you die to greed, you're gonna have a terrible parse. Like, that goes against your goal, your stated goal. Or you'll hear a black mage saying something crazy like, oh, hey guys, I'm gonna try something. And then you see the black mage like off in Narnia on like one very specific pixel on the back of the arena. And you're like, well, good luck, soldier. Hope you don't wipe us. It's usually like not, like, that can be funny and that can be enjoyable. And part of, like, I usually am rooting for the person to actually get away with that. I think that the number of people that actually are saying stuff like, oh, well, I'm gonna throw if I don't get what I want from my parse. Like, the number of people that are actually repeatedly doing something that doesn't work to, like, and it's failing, I don't think that is a lot of people. That's gotta be like a tiny percentage of people. I just can't imagine that would be the norm, because most people do not want to intentionally ruin everyone else's clear. Most people do not even want to draw attention to themselves 99% of the time. Really. I don't think that's the majority of people. You might make a mistake, but I think that you will learn, and you'll try to not do the thing that's causing the failure to continue. But in Party Finder, yeah, like, I don't want to act like it doesn't happen at all. Obviously, there are people who are doing this in Party Finder, and that's extremely shitty. Like, trying to do extremely risky stuff in a random group is shitty. But like I said before, there is a lot that you can get away with and get a good parse with minimal risk to yourself and to the team. So, I mean, yeah, that's why we do parse runs, because that is specifically for the most optimized strats in an environment where everybody is on board with that, where everybody consented to being, like, everyone consented to being punished. That's what log runs are all about. So, I mean, I'm not saying that there's not an issue with some people who will grief Party Finder groups with this, and they're just failing at it, and they're being a pain in the ass. Like, obviously there's some people like that, but I don't think that is the majority of people that are just trying to greed a little more and greed as much as they think they can. Because the thing is, like, in Final Fantasy 14 too, the team has to be informed of the strat that you want to use for uptime for that strat to work. Like, because of how positioning works with the team in most raid encounters in Final Fantasy 14, you can't just make it up as you go along. Like, if you want melee uptime in P4S in phase 1 on the towers part, you need to tell the team, hey, I'm going in the front tower, or you will wipe the group, by not informing people of what you plan to do. Like, it's not something you can just do on the fly. Like, if you want to actually have an uptime strat, people have to be on board with that strat, that uptime strat, in 99% of cases. Just the by nature of how encounters work, you have to be considerate of the team if you actually care about the parse. You see what I'm saying? And yeah, some parses are complete bullshit. It's true. It's true. Like, there are definitely some cases where there are absurd things going on to pad somebody's parse, but usually that stuff is happening in log groups in the 99 and 100 percentile. It's not happening for people who are just trying to get purple or like above between 90 and 95. And I remember another thing Asmon brought up while he was watching this. Apparently people are criticizing Rich, or were criticizing Rich for having gray ultimate parses. What? Like, I thought that was so crazy. It's crazy and it's terrible, but it's not surprising. Like, how do you say I've never cleared an ultimate without actually saying I've never cleared an ultimate? It's like you have no idea of what's involved in clearing an ultimate fight. You have no idea of what's even involved and what it takes to get a better parse on an ultimate fight. And but I mean, the thing is, trolls are going to say all kinds of things. Trolls are going to say all kinds of crazy things. It's usually best to ignore people who have no idea what they're talking about, who are just talking out of their ass all the time. Oh, there was one thing that I really had a problem with in this video, because actually there was a lot of good points. I've tried to focus on the good points in the video. But there was one thing that I did not agree with. Let me see if I can just scoot to it. Okay. We're just scooting through while I'm trying to find the part. But here, I remember that he was talking about the fact that he thinks the trick attack was changed because people were crying about ninja damage. But I honestly think that's bullshit, because I think trick attack was changed right before Dragon Song Ultimate came out, because if they didn't, Ninja would have been just stupid overpowered in Dragon Song Ultimate just because of the way that the burst windows happen in that fight. If Ninja could have given everybody a party-wide buff every 1 minute in that fight, it would have been absolutely insane. So no, I do not think that the reason they changed it was because of the complaining. I definitely don't think that. But in this, I think that right prior to this, he had said that the difference between the best and worst is tiny. So why should people care so much about it? And I actually think that's an extremely good point. And I'm really glad that Asmon watched this, and for this part, especially in like talking to people coming from WoW, because in WoW, it's a much bigger problem where jobs are less balanced than they are in Formless Sack, and people are like, well, what's meta? Because they're traumatized from WoW. They're traumatized from being in a game where you literally will not be invited to raid sometimes because of the class that you picked. But in Formless Sack, that's not as much of a problem, and people come into Formless Sack 14 not understanding that. Like, he mentioned that some people were saying that Paladin sucks because it's on the lower end of damage, but the difference is actually really tiny. And so that was a really good point. I really appreciated that point in this video. And also making the point about, support classes will also be doing lower damage, which might be another concept that could be a little bit hard to understand if you're coming from WoW. Like, we have ranged support classes that are designed to do less damage than the other main DPS jobs because they're providing utility as well. WoW used to have that back in the day. Today, not so much anymore. But I don't want to get off on a whole tangent about it. But that was a really good point in this part too. I still just want to find the part that was referencing. What's that? And optimal. They form a mass of nameless flesh. Okay, I think I found it. Those who can only go to whatever comparisons create ignorant slave. Okay. Samurai. It was hard to see when crit variance made any sort of meaningful difference, almost as if it wasn't a big deal. Even then, when people do talk about actual DPS, these damage comparisons create ignorant slaves. Those who can only go to whatever job is meta and optimal. They form a mass of nameless flesh that move around and collectively spread their filth over any job that they touch. Thanks to their impure motives, they do not appreciate a job for the niche that it occupies and the gameplay that it has. They only want to do big number. This is why they end up complaining about stuff that they find annoying when the people who actually like the job can't relate and don't understand. It's thanks to this formless sack of meat that you never want. Okay, all right. So, obviously, I don't agree with that. I don't agree that, there's ignorant slaves that only go to the meta jobs and they only care about big number. And he said that they're like a big mass of filth that taints every job they touch. Are you kidding me? It's like they don't appreciate the job because they're not real and true fans of the job. Because they don't like the job like I do. So they're like, to me, this was... It felt really pretentious, honestly, to hear. I feel like if people are doing well and are having fun, I don't really give a shit why. Like, I don't care if they pick samurai for big number, because a lot of times that can be a reason just to get somebody in the door of a job and they end up liking it, and then they maybe end up learning more about the job and appreciating it more. I just think it's kind of gross to refer to other players as a formless sack of meat. All right, that's it. Like, unskilled floor lickers.
Your job to be meta so that they can leave it the fuck alone. That way, these unskilled floor
Yeah.
lickers can go ruin something else instead.
Oh, boo-hoo, I need to leave chitin at these specific times in my opener, and it takes up 2 buttons. Can't you make it easier so that I can play the best melee DPS?
Look. Okay, look. Are they unskilled? Are they unskilled floor lickers and they're dead all the time? Or are they only in it for the good parse and the big numbers? Because you can't have it both ways. It's not, nobody can be both. Either you're doing great big numbers or you're dead. Because when you're dead, you're doing 0. No, like, to me, this didn't quite agree with that. And by the way, I don't think anybody asked for chitin to be removed. Like, literally, who asked for that? Nobody asked for that. Nobody wanted that. I literally do not know a single person that wanted that. Okay. And another thing is that I don't think it's wrong that people who aren't new to a game or new to a job, new to DPS, ask the question, what's the best job? I want to know what the best job is. What's so wrong about that? Like, I don't fault people for doing that. And it's when you don't know anything else about it. I don't think it's necessarily evil. Doesn't make you like filthy and diseased and disgusting because you wanted to do a job that does big numbers. Like, that alone can be enjoyable. That can be fun. And I don't know. I didn't like that. I didn't like that part. The real Chad move is to see someone come and get interested in your job for any reason, and then you take them under your wing and you're kind to them and you maybe help inspire their further interest in your job. If you're like, oh, well, they only got to my job because they care about the big number. Well, then talk to them and like, be inspiring, be the best, be a cool example for them, you know? But I did like a lot of the points that were made. One thing that he did said closer to the end of the video was that the people that he's referring to in this video are the ones that are not going into parse runs. But he said that near the end of the video, I think, where he's like, these people are certainly not the ones in log runs. They're certainly not the ones in parse runs. And I thought like that was really important to say. I kind of wish he had said that in the start of the video. I'm usually never going to be a fan of painting a whole group of players with that's kind of vaguely defined as this faceless mass that's like a disease. They're disgusting. Like, it makes my skin crawl a little bit, but at the beginning of the video, he's like, we're gonna make some people's skin crawl. Okay, well, you did. There's a lot you can get away with, and there's a lot you can do to improve your damage, even with party finder strats, normal strats. So I guess I don't want people to think like, oh, I shouldn't even try to do a little more, right? Within the confines of the strat we've all agreed on. Like, just a little bit of risk taking is okay, but you as a player have to have that judgment. You have to have good discretion and know what you can do and what you can't. And sometimes you'll die in the process, and that's fine. Like, if you die because you were learning what you could get away with, and I don't necessarily think that's bad. And I don't think someone like that should be like maligned and seen as like they're horrible because they were just trying to get a little more. As long as they don't just keep doing it over and over and they don't care what everybody else says. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a mini game for a lot of people, and seeing how much more can I do this time than another time. And I don't necessarily think that's bad. I don't necessarily think that's wrong. I think that you can do a lot of self-improvement in pursuit of that, in pursuit of doing better and having like better, like going from gray to blue or blue to purple or purple to orange. Like, that can be fun, and that can turn you into a better player so long as you're not actually griefing people along the way. Some of the most fun that I ever had in raiding in Final Fantasy was me squeezing out that extra bit of damage on Dancer and like learning. It teaches you things about your job that you wouldn't have learned before. And that's another thing, because in this video, he said that, oh, the meta slaves, they don't care about the job as much as people are actually invested in the job. They're ignorant slaves. They just only care about the numbers. But the fact is, like, in my experience of trying to optimize Dancer and Savage last expansion, in the process of me trying to improve my damage and improve my parse, I learned stuff about Dancer I would have never learned otherwise. I learned about advanced Dancer strategy. I learned about, like, how to time my procs, like when to use my procs with how many seconds left on them, and between like thinking about, okay, well, is my saber dance ready now? Should I use it right now because I got a flourish coming up, and then this and that. It was like, for me, that was incredibly fun, and it was incredibly engaging, and I learned so much about my job from doing that, and I got very invested. So I don't know how somebody could go through that and not just by nature learn more about how the job is actually working in an advanced way, like getting very deep into the mechanics of it.
From someone who actually knows how to play
My
the
main
game.
point that I wanted to make in response to this was what I said at the start, which was that it's not one or the other. It doesn't have to be one or the other, of either I'm going to greed a little bit, I'm going to try to get a little bit more out of what I'm doing, and I'm not at a log run, but I'm going to try to, but by doing that, I'm going to do risky stuff that is too risky to the team. I think Asmon said that going for the parse, going for the big numbers can create a goal that is contrary to the group's goals, and I think that's fair. But also your goal in doing a good parse is necessarily part of keeping everybody alive, because you can't do well if everybody else is not alive. So maybe we're talking about people who don't understand that, who just literally think that they can be completely selfish to the point they don't care what else is going on, and I don't know, because that seems a little bit detached from the actual information that you get from a parse, which tells you, look, if that person hadn't been dead, you would have had a better buff. You would have better buffs alignment here, and you would have done better. The boss would have died faster. So I feel like we're talking about a very tiny and a very specific group of grieving people who are in Party Finder only, who don't understand the actual information that comes from FF logs, and who simultaneously want big numbers, but they're also not good enough to do anything other than lick the floor. So it felt a bit weird for me.